Hello friends, my name is Emile and welcome back to some more Gran Turismo 2. Today we're continuing on with our Let's Play. This is episode 90, and in today's episode we are going to be heading over and doing some of the Gran Turismo League events, or the National Championships. Now, as you can see, there are 6 National Championships to go through. We'll go through one each episode. We're going to be starting with the Japanese National Championships because that's the first one that pops up in this list. Now, because there are 3 races in most of these, 2 in some of the, well, in the French and the Italian ones, there's 2 races, and because there's still rather a lot of cars in this game I'd like to use, we are going to be using a different car for each event in this. In the case of the Japanese Nationals, all the events go to Midfield Raceway. 197 horsepower, 295 horsepower, 345 horsepower are the limits. I've already built up a few cars to go ahead and get into those. The first of these cars, well, it's a car I've been teasing for a while. I'm going to be using the Mitsubishi Pajero Mini Sport. Now, ever since the first episode I said I was going to use this car, and well, finally in episode 90 we are going to be using it. So yeah, let's get over to that first race at Midfield Raceway. Now, unfortunately, you don't really get much track variety, but it should be some exciting racing, so let's get into it. Okay, we are on track, and as you can see, we are surrounded by K-cars, as you would probably expect. Now, the Pajero can actually have a lot more horsepower than I was expecting it to have. You can actually get 164 horsepower in it. You could actually get a little bit more out of it, but I decided for fairness, I'd only go to 164. To be fair, I didn't actually know if I was expecting K-cars or budget Civics in this race, so yeah, I might have upgraded this car a little bit too much, but whatever, it can be our little pocket rocket, I guess. So the Pajero Mini Sport then, I've always liked this car just because it's such a cool looking little car. Like, it's very, very diddy. It is a very, very small little car, but it's pretty cool in the sense that it can still go off-roading and everything. It's still got 4-wheel drive, and it's a very, very capable off-road car as well. It's kind of like the Suzuki Jimny in that sense. Now, while I don't think Britain ever got the Pajero Mini, we actually got the Mitsubishi Shogun Pinning, and that's the car that James May used, if you remember rightly, on the last episode of Proper Top Gear. In fact, now that I think of it, a kind of a scary thought just popped into my head. By the time this episode comes out, Top Gear, the new Top Gear, may have already debuted. Huh. That's a scary thought. In case you're wondering, recording this still at the start of May, so yeah. Anyways, we got the Shogun Pinning, and I've always really liked that car as well, just because, again, it's a tiny little thing. You wouldn't expect it to be able to go off-roading. It's very much like the reason I like the Fiat Panda 4-wheel drive. It's because you do not expect that car to be able to off-road and all the rest of it. But it can, and in some cases it's better than a Range Rover, as 5th Gear, I believe, actually proved. Although, admittedly, the Panda did get stuck at one point, so it didn't quite beat the Range Rover, but for most of the little off-road course they did, the Panda was beating the Range Rover just because it has very, very short overhangs, and I guess the Shogun has, or the Pajero, I usually call them Pajeros. I think everyone in England basically calls these things Pajeros. I don't think many people call them Shoguns these days. But yeah, I mean, many people seem to like these things and say they're pretty capable and pretty roughy-tufty. Admittedly, the Pinning ones were actually built by the Italians and not by Mitsubishi. Oh, actually, I don't want to say the Italians because I love Italian cars, they're amazing. But it was built by Pinning Farina, so yeah, I mean, I don't know how much Mitsubishi stuff went into that, so I don't know if that was exactly a reliable car per se, but nevertheless, it's still a really cool car. I'd love to drive one, but yeah, I'll probably never end up buying one just because I don't really have much use for a sort of true off-roady mini vehicles such as this one. Anyways, pretty unexciting racing. 126.452 was the quickest lap, and the Micro was the quickest out there cars, followed by the Subaru Vivio, the Daihatsu Quare, the Suzuki Alto Works, and finally the Mazda AZ1 trailed in last place. So there we go, that is the first race of the Japanese Nationals complete. We get a mighty 4,000 credits and I will see you guys in a second when we're going to go and get the other car. Okay, so there we go. Now time to go and get my other vehicle for today, and when I say other vehicle I mean 2 of 3. We are going to go and get out my... It's somewhere in here. It is there. No, this isn't it. This is the... No, not that. We've already used that. It's going to be this one. Yes, I do remember where the cars are in my garage. We're going to use this Civic because it has the best race mod in the game, in my opinion. Just look at it. It looks fantastic. With this race mod on it. It is the 93 Civic VTI. You could get this in the Fierro Saloon, and I believe it gets exactly the same race mod. Anyways, let's head into the racing, and some bigger competition may head up in this event. Okay, some tougher competition has indeed showed up for this particular race. I was kind of expecting Civic Type Rs, but no, we've actually got some pretty decent competition here. A Tommy Kyra ZZS Coupe, a Nissan Silvia, we've got an FC RX-7. Just checking there was no background noise coming through on my microphone. We have a Toyota Altezza, because this car is actually pretty loud, and a Honda S2000, all of which we've made quick work of. I assume because this Civic is actually extremely light. I'm not too sure on the statistics off the top of my head. You probably saw it when we selected it. It weighs about 964 kilograms. It's lighter than a ton. It's mostly probably just due to its racing modifications and all the rest of it. But yeah, this is another car I've really wanted to use. Actually, to be fair, most of the cars that you're going to see in the Nationals are cars that I've just wanted to use for a while, especially in this first Japanese episode, because the Japanese cars usually have the best race mods, and there's the biggest variety of cars in the Japanese region of this game. The Civic Type... sorry, it's not a Type R, it's a Civic VTI. Admittedly, I've always said my favourite model of Civic is the EK9, then it'd probably be the model after that. I can't remember what it was called. I think it was the EP9 or EP4. And then it's probably this one. I do like the early 90s one. Admittedly, as much as I want to own like an EK9 or something like that, I don't really want to own one of these models, or even the EP, I still can't remember, it was EP something. Someone will probably tell me down below in the comments. Yeah, I don't know if I'd actually own a 90s Civic, but if someone like offered me one and said, you know, hey, it's bright yellow, it's got a load of decent kit on it, it isn't riced, and you can have it for free, then sure, totally. Or even for like 500 quid, I'd probably go on that, because I do love my Civics. And yeah, to be fair, actually, if I was to get this model Civic, and bear in mind, like, let's say it only costs like £1,000, because I'm not actually too sure on how much wrapping costs, but yeah, if I got this model Civic, I would have to get this sort of put on a wrap or something, just because it looks absolutely amazing. You see, if someone offered me this model Civic with this specific livery on it, and said, you know, yeah, you can have it for, let's say, £1,000, I would totally go for it, because this livery is just amazing. It's, like I said, in my opinion, best race mod in the game probably goes to the Civic, at least when we go to normal race mods without counting some of the silliness, like the Taurus, or, well, everyone knows what I'm actually referring to, but I'm not going to say. Anyways, didn't really look at the field too much there, unfortunately. My bad, I'm so used to skipping through it. The Altezza came last. I believe the S2000 would have placed second. We get 5,000 credits. And let's go and get our final car of the day for the final race of the day. Okay, there we go. Now let's go and get our final car of the day. Last but certainly not least. Alright, I just have to go down here because I actually bought these cars a little bit before I bought the rest of them. The rest of them are sort of all in a nice line, and these ones are not so much. Anyways, we're using a Mazda 323 GTR, my favourite model of GTR, even though it's not actually a Skyline. 345 horsepower, 1079 kilograms. This thing is basically upgraded to the absolute maximum because in our last event we're probably going to be facing off against R34s. So let's go and see if that theory is true. Well, it looks like my theory was certainly true. There is definitely an R34 up at the front. There is a Supra, an Impreza, RX-7, a 300ZX. Okay. I actually forgot about 300ZX. That thing's got a really cool racing mod. But, you know, I don't really regret it because there is no way I could pass up a quick drive in this vehicle before the series ends. The Mazda 323 GTR. One of my favourites of the 90s hot hatches, to be honest with you. I just love the way this thing looks. It's kind of weird when you look at it. But to be honest with you, I do absolutely adore this vehicle. It's great. The racing mod for this one's pretty cool. It's you know, it's a relatively bog standard rally livery. Of course, I believe. Actually, I'd say of course. I don't get why I say of course I believe, but I do believe the 323 GTR was definitely rallied. That also didn't make any sense. The 323 GTR was rallied. There we go. That makes sense. Hence why it has this livery. I believe this is the livery it used. Not too sure how it actually did as a rally car per se. I mean, obviously, 1992, the Lancia Delta would have been coming into the sport. The Super Imprezas and the Evos were probably a couple of years away, so the 323F may or may not have done well. I'm just trying to think, rally cars in the 90s. I mean, what really could there have been other than, yeah, a little bit of understeer through there. This car is it has an awful lot more power than any of the other vehicles I've driven here today, so I'm just trying to get used to driving powerful cars again. And then the next episode I'm going to have to get used to driving not so powerful cars again because, well, the cars in the next bit aren't particularly powerful, but we're not going to worry ourselves with that at the moment. We're going to worry ourselves about the amazing Mazda 323F and the fact that it's leaving all its competition in dust. To be fair, I actually think the R34 in that pack may be the Tommy Kyra R34, which is... I actually haven't looked at the stats on the R34 Tommy Kyra. I assume that it's a little bit better than a standard R34 Skyline. Of course, no one will remember it because everyone remembers just the standard R34 V-Spec, that sort of the car everyone goes away from Gran Turismo 2 remembering, not so much the Tommy Kyra one. To be honest with you, I kind of forgot that was even a thing in this game. I think there's actually a few Tommy Kyra R34s in this game. But it doesn't matter because it's just a little red speck back there. Because we win the race, we're at 117.172 as our final lap time, which is pretty good. The Super RZ comes in second, Impreza in third, and Nissan 300ZX in fourth, RX-7 in fifth, and oh wait, it was just a standard R34. Wait, was it? Oh right, it was a standard R34. I thought it was Tommy Kyra one. Anyways, as you can see, we blew away the field then. They definitely was not expecting this slightly dowdy looking hot hatch to come and obliterate them. But either way, we are going to, well, I'm going to go and see you guys in a second. Okay, so there we go. That is the Japanese National Championships over and done with. In the next episode, we're going to be taking on the French... Thanks, phone. We're going to be taking on the French National Championships, so join me for that. Anyways, friends, I want to thank you all very much for watching. My name's been the Real Emile, and until next time, a farewell.